We're back with the postseason Week 1 edition of the Thursday Night Tailgate. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks so much for all the feedback we've gotten the past couple weeks on Twitter, on Facebook, the direct messages, the emails. It's fantastic. We love to see the enthusiasm. This week, once again, we are on location, and we're at a fantastic place this week, especially being that we had just celebrated Veterans Day. We're here at the Summit Hill American Legion Post 316, and boy, what a better place to film the week we're celebrating Veterans Day, right?
Oh, absolutely. Talked about, all these things that we could do, all this great stuff that we have in our country. We talk about football every week, and a lot of it's provided by the veterans, and we owe them as many thanks as we can give them.
Yeah, people, you hear it all the time. People say, when you get to Mother's Day, every day should be Mother's Day. We get to Father's Day, every day should be Father's Day. Veterans Day should be every day. We got to be thankful every day for the servicemen and servicewomen we have serving and protecting our country, and it's awesome. We can't say it enough.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think November rolls around. People are getting, maybe it's because they're getting in Thanksgiving mode, getting in Christmas mode, and it's just underappreciated. This holiday, maybe.
I think people take it for granted.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
So the small things, something small that we can do here at the Thursday Night Tailgate, and hopefully, hey, we celebrated Veterans Day this week, so make sure when you see a veteran, you thank them. And thanks so much to the members of the Summit Hill American Legion for having us. Fantastic place. Feel very fortunate to be here this week. What we're going to do first is recap this week's games. We'll start with the Eastern Conference. In AAA, we got two teams that, let's face it, these guys at the end of the year are hoping to be in districts. However, when that did not occur, we really thought it was a very interesting matchup. Jim Thorpe, Saucon Valley, both teams very exciting offenses. Jim Thorpe's Red Swarm has been very productive this year. Saucon Valley with Savant in the backfield, and he was the difference this past Friday night. Saucon Valley comes into Jim Thorpe. Saucon Valley 7-3 coming into the game with a lot of quality wins. And they end up beating the AFL champ Jim Thorpe Olympians. They win that game 35-20. Nick Savant, 264 yards and 5 touchdowns. And this is following up a performance against Palisades when he had 333, over 300 yards. So he's looking at 600 yards in the last 2 weeks, this kid. Becomes Saucon Valley's all-time leading rusher and, leads them to the Eastern Conference Final in 3A, and it makes a little bit of a case of for Saucon Valley maybe what could have been.
Oh, absolutely. And we discussed last week on here the playoff scenarios, and we got a lot of heat from some Pottsville people,
which we love. Hey, if you're that means you're watching. That means you're checking out our tweets or our Facebook. Love the feedback.
Absolutely, and I. First of all, I want to clarify, because there were some Pottsville people that thought we bashed them a little bit, and maybe we did, but we are Coal Region guys, we are Schuylkill County guys, we love Pottsville, but, at this point, we stand behind what we said last week. And Saucon Valley's done nothing to disprove that. Saucon Valley had 2 huge wins now. Last week against the AFL champion, and the week before that against Palisades, who went on to beat, undefeated Pine Grove. So, Saucon Valley, we stand behind what we say last week, and Pottsville means nothing. It was nothing personal against you guys, but this was a great game.
It was a great game. It was an entertaining game. Let's put it all outside. You look at the game, exciting, fun to watch.
And being an AFL guy and an anthracite guy, I used to coach in the Colonial League though, and these kind of games are really exciting when you get that AFL and you get that Colonial League matchup, and it lived up to the billing. Offense. This was, if you're a defensive guy, you might not like to watch this. Both teams over 440 yards of total offense. And like you said, Savant stole the show. But the thing that really, really, really ended up hurting Jim Thorpe was the opportunities that they missed out on. 5 times inside the 28-yard line and came away with no points on those 5 opportunities. And that was the game.
Yeah, you get a couple points there, and it's a totally different game. Jim Thorpe was down 8 with 3 minutes left, and Saucon Valley punched one in late.
Yep.
But Coach Marky Vanko from Saucon Valley said he had nightmares last week trying to think about how he's going to stop this Saunders kid from Jim Thorpe. And we've talked about him all year.
Every week.
RS2, he had a fantastic game. And I'm guessing, and I don't know offhand, this had to be a career high passing for him. He threw for 288 last week. He had a 67-yarder to Ryan Carroll. He had a 74-yarder to St. Hill. And then he ran a 73-yarder. So, I mean, he had 3 touchdown plays that were over 60 yards in one game. And
I'm wondering if it's a Jim Thorpe school record. I mean, I know Sinicola put some big numbers up a couple of years ago. Obviously, last year with Davigno, but 288 yards is a lot of yards.
Back in the day, Eric Schranz.
Oh, yeah.
Eric Schranz put up some numbers.
The Times News will take care of that this week. They'll let us know how that was.
But one of the things we were talking about before, we said, Ryan Saunders II. There might have been a lot of people in Jim Thorpe that knew about him coming into this year. And maybe there was a big game or two he had last year that really stuck out and people recognized him. But
At a completely different position.
At a completely different position. But this season right here that he had is a great indication of why you put in the time in the offseason and what could happen. Because coming into this year, for the majority of the league, we didn't know who Ryan Saunders II was.
And we expected nothing like this from Jim Thorpe.
Jim Thorpe was
in addition to
1-9.
not knowing about Ryan Saunders, we did not expect any of this. And no one else did.
Right. They were 1-9. They graduated Pat Davigno, who was one of the best all-around players Jim Thorpe has ever had.
All-state.
And then here comes Ryan Saunders II, and he makes the name for himself. And 20, 30, 40 years from now, people are going to remember who he is. And I don't think the kids realize that, the impact that what they have, They
probably don't get it right now. And I agree 100%. I mean, this season that Jim Thorpe had, the regular season, coming off of back-to-back 1-9 seasons, I don't know if people actually realize how hard that is. Don't talk to me about who they played or how this team turned out or how that team turned out. Just getting those kids in that mindset to come back from back-to-back 1-9 seasons to win your league. They won the league. And it's as impressive as a performance as we've had and we've had a lot of real impressive performances in the Anthracite Football League, over the course of the last, 10 seasons. But, for what they did, it's extremely impressive. It really is. And they got Jim Thorpe football back on the map. They got them back in playoffs. They earned respect. They got a league title. What else could you ask for?
No, I agree with all that. It's just a lot of fun. And if you're an underclassman out there who had a marginal year or an average year, that could be you next year. Like that person that just burst onto the scene, or that team that burst onto the scene when nobody else expected. But hey, I thought we talked in the pregame about keeping this segment short.
We were going to try to. I just got excited there.
Yeah, and it does get exciting. We've been talking about Jim Thorpe every week, and their season ended. Yeah. So, I think it's warranted. I think they did a fantastic job. We focus on the kids all the time. I think their coaching staff did an amazing job getting them focused.
And a lot of young
this year.
coaches on that staff too.
I know after Thorpe won the league, we were very congratulatory, and hey, once again, just great job, great season, fun to watch, and just great to see a team come in and just shock everybody.
Got the townsfolk to rally around them again.
Absolutely. How fun was that being at Harry's Barbershop at Jim Thorpe when they had that big game coming up? I mean,
good times.
Good times. So Saucon Valley moves on. Jim Thorpe's season comes to an end, but what a season it was. AA Eastern Conference, North Schuylkill takes care of business. They beat North Penn Blossburg 28-6. North Schuylkill improves to 8-3. A lot of young kids seem to be hitting their stride, and they're looking to defend their EC title. So from last year. So, maybe not exactly where they wanted to be, but still, the last few weeks they got to be happy with.
I think you look at Austin Hummel's quote, and he said, "It's a lot better to still be playing than sitting at home on your couch." And hey, we can say Eastern Conference is the NIT, but honestly, if you're still playing high school football right now, and a majority of the other schools in the state are at home getting ready for basketball or wrestling or whatever they do, hey, that's awesome. I mean, football is king. And by these teams still going, That's awesome. Austin Hummel had a huge game. He had 23 carries, 186 yards. And he's the one kid out of that group of North Schuylkill kids that really emerged, that every week you pick up a paper, you look at it, Austin Hummel is going to be in there.
Yep. Hey, I remember going all the way back to that first or second week when we're in the woods filming this show here when the sun was shining, it was nice and hot. We talked about North Schuylkill's defense, and they held North Penn to 109 total yards offense. 109. That's a football field and a little bit more in the course of an entire game. So that's impressive. The one thing came up again. We said this several times throughout the year. North Schuylkill and their turnovers. 2 fumbles lost, an interception. Something that they definitely have to rectify against Northwestern this week for the Eastern title game, because that's going to be an outstanding game. We're really looking forward to that, and we'll talk a little bit about it later.
Yeah, that is going to be exciting. Next, we'll take a look at the single A Eastern Conference games. 2 games that obviously are of huge interest to us and all Anthracite Football League fans. First, we have Marian traveling up to Muncie. So Marian's got to get on a bus going along right up to Muncie. We don't really know a whole lot about them. We talked about that last week. And then talk about unknowns. Not only was Muncie unknown, Marian throws out this freshman quarterback. Didn't throw a pass all year. Ethan Kaczynski. I hope I pronounced your name right, because you deserve it. I hope that was correct.
Yeah.
But, boy, 160 yards, 4 touchdowns in his first start in a playoff game. Super impressive. Marian moves on to that rematch that we were hoping to see.
Yeah, I mean, we all looked ahead at this, and, we saw Muncie was going downhill. Marian was kind of uphill, and then they kind of got a little stagnant at the end there. But, I mean, we were all looking ahead to this Marian-Mahanoy matchup. Marian's defense really stepped up this week. Muncie ran for 29 yards in the game, and they had 153 total yards for the entire game. So, Marian's defense, they've been playing much, much better than they were earlier in the year, and I think that was the key to them getting to the Eastern Conference Championship game, and I think next week that's going to be the huge key for that game coming up.
Sure. I like that use of the word stagnant there. That's
Did
nice.
you like that?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But on the
I don't
other,
have that on FNF.
No, F&F got nothing on it. Stagnant, I think I'm like
what's F and F have? Oh, that's right. I was on there last week. I keep forgetting about that. But for Marian, Anthony Gussie, another strong game, 100 yards rushing. But I'll tell you what, for never attempting a pass in a high school game, and Coach Cranston mentioned that a little bit, but that deserves saying for the 3rd time. Never attempted a pass in a high school game, and Ethan comes out and goes 9 of 12 for 163 yards and 4 TDs. If we were still doing our weekly awards, which we're not, we ended that in the regular season, and then we're going to do an end of the season one at the end of the year. But if we were, that's a black diamond performance right there, because that's pretty impressive. I just want to know, where's he been all year now? That's what we got to be asking.
Where's he been hiding?
We always talk about Marian's big roster for a single A school. Sometimes you better look in the back there and see those guys that are standing in the back and can play, because this kid obviously can play.
Very impressive performance. So Marian takes care of business. They beat Muncie 34-13. Next Eastern Conference single A game was Mahanoy area and Nativity. We didn't really talk about it much last week. We said Mahanoy took care of business during the regular season. We expected the same thing to happen, and they did, 42-0. So Mahanoy advances. Obviously, unfortunately, that was not the story of the game. The story of the game is Mahanoy area quarterback Dylan Maymont hurt. Looks like he is unavailable this week for the Eastern Conference Championship game. It appears to be a shoulder injury. We're not going to speculate on a time frame. What we are going to say is that it has been a lot of fun watching a player of Dylan Maymont's caliber playing. The kid's a gamer, brings it every week, and unfortunately he's not going to be able to participate this week. So where does that leave Mahanoy? We talked a little bit about this before we started filming. I don't know the ins and outs of their backup on the football field. I know he is a tough kid in Sena. I know he's an athlete, and I still expect this to be a very competitive game. We thought it was going to be a competitive game regardless. We thought Marian was much better, and we weren't going to see that blowout that we saw earlier in the year when Mahanoy just really took it to Marian. But even with these new situations, I think it's a big game.
We looked at this matchup, and it was one of those where you don't want to look ahead. It's a playoff game. And Mahanoy did what they had to do. One of their leaders went down early in the game. They stepped up defensively and didn't give up a point. So, hey, they got through to this week. I'm sure they got a full week now to get ready for Marian. I'm sure those Mahanoy kids want nothing better to get another piece of Marian this year.
Yep.
And I'm sure vice versa works around. We will talk about that in the second segment.
Yeah, we will talk about that later. And last week's game, Mahanoy did what we expected them to do against Nativity. They did it earlier in the year. They did it in past years in Eastern Conference playoffs. I don't want to be public enemy number one in Pottsville, but Nativity finished with a 4-7 record. They shouldn't have been in playoffs either. They got to figure something out how to get deserving teams in the playoffs, whether it's districts or Eastern Conference.
Well, I mean, a quick sidebar of that. I mean, look at Mahanoy. Mahanoy's 7-3. You have Pius 6-4.
Mahanoy's 8-3 now.
Now Mahanoy's 8-3 after that win, and you look at. I mean, Pius played a nice game against Steel High. They lost though.
Yeah.
They lost, and obviously Steel High's a great squad, but Mahanoy is a gripe. Mahanoy certainly is a gripe. I mean, you look at.
Absolutely.
We talk about quality wins. I mean, Mahanoy performing against Tamaqua the way that they did. You look back and like we said, sticking it to Marian early in the year the way that they did. That win is looking much more impressive now as the year goes on, and Marian's playing much better.
Losing to Jim Thorpe, Haven, and North Schuylkill, all playoff teams. That's all they lost to this year.
Yeah.
Legitimately good teams, and then a Pius who doesn't have a quality win gets in at a lesser record, and something's got to be figured out.
Right, and the reason this is such an issue is because the point system changed this year.
Yeah. Right.
Under the previous system, which with the way that was figured out, these playoff brackets look completely different.
Completely different.
They're completely different. I mean, you have Monty areas in districts. Lehighton was in with their win over Jim Thorpe, and Saucon Valley's in districts.
Yep.
And Jim Thorpe finishes ahead of Pottsville as well, but not enough to get them in, correct? Because Saucon Valley would take that spot. But it looks totally different. And the old system really rewarded more for wins than just the opponent.
And you made a great point yesterday when we were talking about this. It's not like in basketball or baseball, where
Totally, exactly.
you get in with a certain record. In this situation, you're bumping another team. And now they really got to examine about that team that gets bumped, did they deserve it? And
exactly, and that's why you're so passionate about it, because you got to think about, it sounds like maybe we're saying this team doesn't belong, but you got to think about that team on the other end.
Yep.
That is sitting at home. Look at Tamaqua sitting at home.
Yeah.
Because Eastern Conference still awards by each region needs to have a representative. Tamaqua 7-3 and has nothing. I mean, when you get in football, you keep someone else out. Totally different. Doesn't occur in basketball. Doesn't occur in baseball. Doesn't occur in volleyball or any of the most other high school sports. But it's subjective.
we're talking about a 4-7 Nativity team, a 5-5 Marian team, and now 6-5. A 6-4 Pius team, and Tamaqua at 7-3 with quality wins is sitting home.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the questions we had was, why is Quad A still using the old system? And our response is because they're involved with District 2.
Yep. Sub-regional.
So there's a sub-regional, there's District 11 and District 2 together. Well, I would like somebody from District 11 to explain to me, why did you change what we've been using forever?
Yep.
And change it. So single A, double A, triple A user, you change your system, but now you got Quad A, which is still using the old system. Because the difference there is, this year, instead of Saucon Valley being in, who's a very good team, they would have switched with Pottsville.
Yeah. And I didn't know we were going to get into this, but I crunched the numbers this week. Saucon Valley under the old system would have finished with 790 points. Jim Thorpe under the old system would have finished with 780 points.
Right.
Pottsville under the old system would have finished with 630 points. It wouldn't even have been close. Nobody would have been talking about it. Because in the old system, you reward it when you beat bigger teams, not just by playing them. Heck, you can schedule in February a potential playoff season.
Right, and I wish I had the specifics like you did, but
That's my job. I'm a numbers cruncher.
you are a numbers cruncher. Looking at the single A bracket, though, if you went by the old thing, I think it was like Mahanoy would have been 780 and Pius was like 680.
Yep.
So it wouldn't even have been close and no one would have questioned it.
Yep.
Mahanoy had 7 wins, Pius had 6 wins.
And now they switched to a system that you get on their website, it's 3 pages long and no one can understand it.
And what was the reason for changing it? That's what I don't know.
I don't know.
Like, what were the big gripes the last couple of years and say, oh, we got to change this to make everybody happy? Who are they making happy right now? I don't know.
I don't know.
No.
It doesn't
Nobody on this panel, obviously.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. You should be rewarded for the teams that you beat, not the teams you lost to.
You know what? Those of you that follow us on Twitter, if you could justify the change, we'd be interested to hear because we had some great dialogue going last week.
We did. We love it. You know, we certainly don't expect everyone to agree
No.
with our thoughts on this, and we absolutely love. Even when you disagree, let us know about it. I think that's awesome. That's what sports is about. Let's face it. Everybody sits down on a Saturday. You watch a college football game. You watch a bunch of coaches that know a heck of a lot more than anyone here, sitting here talking or on the other end watching. But you still question those calls.
Right, and
That's football.
Here's
That's what
one
you
of the things I want to make sure everybody understands. When Pottsville was playing Southern Lehigh last week, we were all cheering for Pottsville.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
We are
Yeah.
coal region guys. We just think that, and Coach McCarter, we talked about this. When you have a 7-3 Southern or Saucon Valley team and a 5-5 team, you got a team with 7 wins and 5 wins. The 7-win team should get in.
Yep.
You know, you look at their wins. If it's a 7 versus 6 or a 6 versus 5, it's a little different. You
Yep.
understand maybe the wins will weigh out a little bit differently. You know, we're Pottsville guys, but Saucon Valley, to us, it seemed like they should have been in. Mahanoy area over Pius,
Should have been
it
in.
looked like they should have been in.
And hey, we're pretty passionate about this. None of this is on the script. We just went off there, but
Yeah.
we're passionate about football and what's going on here in these kids.
Double A.
Districts,
Triple A.
I'm sorry. District Triple A. We got Becca beating Lehighton. Lehighton, nice season under Coach
Yes.
McCarroll. They got a great staff there doing great things. They got a young squad. They got a lot of nice wins along the way. They played some very good football this year. They ran into a team in Becca that has really just played better competition.
Yes.
But, I mean, they played better comp. They're playing in the LVC. Becca really turned it around. Becca struggled a bit last year. They turned it on this year, and Becca's for real. Becca's for real. Lehighton finishes their season, and a nice season it was. And I think Lehighton coming into the Anthracite Football League, they got to be pretty pumped, knowing that what they have coming back as far as their players and also as far as their coaching staff.
Yeah, you look at this Lehighton game, and I got to catch some of this on TV. It was 14-0 Becca, late second quarter. Lehighton put a nice drive together, drove down, scored, make it 14-6, I think it was, or 14-7. And then Becca got the ball with like a minute and a half left and punched one in. So if you can go in 14-6, you're down a score, that's huge.
It is.
And then Becca doing it, that just takes all the air out of it. And, one thing you got to think about, though, Lehighton coming into the league next year, hey, that's great. They might end up 8-2. You get in districts, you're going to have to deal with Becca.
Yep.
And you're going to have to deal with Southern Lehigh and Pottsville. I mean, you got bigger schools you're going to have to win.
Central.
So, I mean, and hey, if these points are working out the way they are now, you might have to win 7 games to get in if you're in a smaller
Sure. Lehighton is going to have to win 7 games to get in the future
Yep.
in the Anthracite League.
So, we'll see.
Okay, next we got Southern Lehigh over Pottsville. Southern Lehigh ended up winning 27-3. So district championship, you're going to have a Lehigh Valley district championship as far as the area. Colonial League School, Southern Lehigh against Lehigh Valley Conference. Becca, should be interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Southern Lehigh, man, I'll tell you what, I'm very familiar with them from coaching down in that league. John Toman has done an outstanding job. They were a doormat for decades. They were considered a country club school, that was good at soccer and golf and all that. He made it a football school. They're year in and year out, they're in this. They beat Pottsville a couple of years ago. And he's done a great job. Now we turn from, at least I do, turn from an AFL fan. I'm rooting for Southern Lehigh over Becca. I just really hope they get that elusive district championship because they've been in 2 the last couple of years and didn't win one.
I think I don't think it would be out of line to say that pretty much everyone outside of the Becca community
Yes.
is rooting for a Southern Lehigh win. And
every wrestling fan
Yes.
outside of Becca is rooting for any kind of Becca loss. And,
yeah, there's not a whole
Yeah.
lot of Becca fans outside of Becca.
But
So
going back to Pottsville, so we don't lose faith from the Pottsville thing. Again, we were rooting for them last week, and lost in all this debate here is under first-year head coach Tom McGoey. A nice year, first-year head coach taking after a long, Coach Keating, a long-time coach there, a legend there. Making the playoffs, having a good year, something to build on, certainly. And I know they lose a lot on defense. They lose 10 starters on defense, but they got 7 guys coming back on offense, and certainly something to build on.
Yeah, and Coach McGoy's a real good guy, and really had a great career playing at Pottsville, and he's a Pottsville guy, and he's going to do nice things. He really is. Moving on, Double A. Caddy takes care of business against Penn Argyl. Caddy's a favorite of 2A. We've talked about that. Dealing with some injuries, but it's the other game, Palisades Pine Grove. We thought going into it that Palisades was going to win. Pine Grove, they get in every year. We said we don't really know what they have, and they haven't. Have they played in a district championship in the last 15, 20 years?
No, not in the last 15.
They haven't won one, and we don't even.
If somebody out there in Pine Grove can, we didn't get the opportunity to research that. We tried a little bit, but
it's kinda
I'm
hard to
fairly
find.
certain. I coached for the previous 14 years at the AA level, and I do not believe they played in a district final. They were in the playoffs several times. Northern Lehigh they ran into a few years. Palisades in 2007, I know, knocked them out in the first round, but I don't believe they have played one. But one thing about this game that really disappoints me, we got some close friends at the Times News in the sports department, and last week we said on our show that we felt Palisades was the favorite.
They obviously aren't watching that.
That's not. I'm either thinking they're not watching. Emmett, Bob, Boris, Eddie Hedges,
Keep
all
going.
you guys.
Call them out. Call them out.
Brad Hurley.
Yeah.
If you guys are watching us, how can you unanimously pick against Palisades?
They must think we know nothing.
Yeah, what are you guys doing? Come on, really? Are you kidding me?
And, I don't want to say I told you so, but we told you so.
That's right.
So yeah, those guys, you know who you are. Times News Sports Department, and we love you guys. You know that, but yeah, Palisades. We weren't shocked when we saw that score come in.
Absolutely. So this week you're looking at Palisades against Caddy, and it should be interesting. And in single A, first Williams Valley, they took care of business over Pius. They won 18-13.
Yep.
And then in the other game, we had Schuylkill Haven over Tri-Valley. Schuylkill Haven carrying the AFL banner into district playoffs, and Schuylkill Haven hitting their stride. Hashtag hurricane warning. Schuylkill Haven, 42-0. We're excited to see what the Hurricanes can do.
We said a couple of weeks ago, nobody wants to play these guys. Tri-Valley found that out. I mean, it was convincing. My God. And this one should be a little bit more interesting, a little closer, but my money's on the Hurricanes, man. They're healthy, they're big, they're strong, they're confident. This is exciting. I'm excited that we're getting to follow them here for hopefully the next few weeks.
That'd be great.
Yeah, you look at this, and this is what they work for. He talked to Coach Farr in the offseason. He talks about how much time they put in and how much weight that they gained and how strong they got.
At the jungle.
At the jungle. And this is what it's for their playoff push.
Yep.
Now they got Williams Valley coming up this week. Fink and Casella had huge games again. It talked about the defensive ends, Bailey and Ferriel. I mean, and it named every kid on the defense. They completely shut down Tri-Valley, 42-zip. Starters played one series in the third quarter, and then after that, they got them out, rested them up. They're going to be ready to go.
Boy, very impressive. You look back earlier in the year, I mean, Schuylkill Haven, for the expectations that they had, okay, coming into the year, which we talked about. And then they have that tough opening week loss against Wyomissing.
Yep.
They hit some injuries. They lose a couple games early that maybe you didn't quite expect, making it highly unlikely for them to compete for the AFL title. To keep that focus, to come back, when their margin for error for the last 5 weeks has been 0-0. They have no margin of error, and they come out, and not only do they perform, but every week perform better. Very, very impressive job by Schuylkill Haven the last couple weeks, and it's awesome. They want to be practicing when.
Thanksgiving Day.
And
that's
you know,
cool.
we're hoping that happens. So Schuylkill Haven, they're going to carry the AFL banner, playing for a district championship against Williams Valley this coming weekend. So that wraps up our Week 1 postseason. Any closing comments?
We were hoping that was quick, but I don't think it was.
It wasn't.
No, it was the opposite of quick.
It was the opposite.
But that's
Well,
fine.
we hope you
Hey, we're
enjoyed it.
excited about this. And if you're excited about it and you're watching us, then, you know, who cares?
Hey, if we're too long, you can turn us off.
Yeah.
You won't hurt our feelings.
All right, so what we're going to do is wrap it up, and we'll be back with our Week 2 postseason preview. We're going to take a look at the Eastern Conference Championship games. We're going to take a look at the District Championship. And as far as the Eastern Conference Championships go, we've got a lot of seniors playing in their last game. Seniors that we've really had a good time watching. So we'll be back with that.